Hey, hi,
Hello.
everyone. Thanks for making it today. Appreciate you all being here. As you can probably see on your screen, we're going to be talking about remote work. My name's Kenny Brennan. I work with Accenture. It's a consulting company kind of based all over the world, but I'm based in Nashville. So I'm excited to be here today. Uh, just a second. Okay. Just wanted to go over a quick agenda. We'll follow this pretty closely. I'll start with a quick introduction of myself, talk a little bit about what is remote work, the different types of it. That'll probably be pretty quick. We'll jump into pros and cons of remote work. This is a pretty meaty topic. We'll talk about professionalism. How do you act when you're actually working from home? There's jokes. Oh, I'm just gonna go home and wear my pajamas, and then you turn your camera on and you got your pajamas on. Stuff like that you don't want to be doing. We'll talk about work-life balance. That's super important when you're working from home. We'll talk about how you can build your network in a virtual environment. And I didn't want to call it TikTok time, but we'll have some TikTok time at the end. Take a look at a few videos about remote work, and kind of did they do the right thing in this situation or not? So quick introduction about myself. I'm a software developer with Accenture. I think I mentioned that. I've been here for almost 3 years now. Been in the industry from insurance. I've worked in telecommunications. So now I'm currently uh, doing more consulting work. So just a quick little background about me. Also, I have a degree in computer science. I'm very interested in software development and stuff like that. And that job goes very well with remote work. Everything that I do at my current job, I can do remotely. So I think I've got a lot of knowledge on this topic. I hope I can make it interesting for everyone. So we're going to talk about what is remote work. I know this is kind of silly, but there's really three key distinctions that we need to make. The first one is in office. This is the one that everybody knows. You're corporate, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You're commuting all the time, all of that. Hybrid is a mix of both full remote and in office. So this is what Accenture offers. They actually offer full remote as well. But if you're in a city with an Accenture office, they offer hybrid. So you can come into the office when you want. They have different sorts of events, or you can just stay at home and work from home. And as long as your productivity isn't dropping, I don't think anybody's going to say anything about that. And then fully remote. So you don't need to come into an office. You can work from wherever you want. If you want to go work on the beach for a week, you can go ahead and do that. Nobody's going to say anything. Just don't miss your meetings. That's a big one. Or just work from home, right? And so that's normally what I'm doing. Today, I'm actually in our office. We have a holiday party of sorts going on, a big potluck. So those are the type of events that I personally like to come in for, when there's going to be free food and I don't have to pay for it. That's the best part of a hybrid schedule, is that you can kind of choose when you come in. I've also been on a 2 day a week in the office schedule. I follow that pretty closely. Normally Tuesdays and Thursdays I'll come in. So I personally I love hybrid working, because if you're sick or whatever, we'll dive into all of that. Um, so I want to talk about the different pros and cons of remote work. You'll probably see all sorts of articles about, oh, we need to come back into the office. Oh, workers are more productive when they're working from home. And then you'll see a statement from a CEO like, we don't have the data, but we want everyone back in the office, right? And so I think it's important that we go over, what are the benefits of each, and then what are the drawbacks of each. Remote working on a hybrid schedule, the main benefits include flexibility and structure. If you're the type of person who, maybe you don't have that attitude where you're like, okay, I'm going to sit down at my computer and I'm going to focus for a full 8 hours and we're going to get everything done. This sort of hybrid structure does support that, right? If you're not that type of person, though, you also get the same benefit, right? You can go into the office. You want to be social, you know, certain events and stuff like that. So you get kind of the best of both worlds with a hybrid structure, the flexibility, and being able to go into the office. I think that one's kind of obvious, but I did just want to highlight that. Really, the main benefits that I see with hybrid work is actually this in-person collaboration. This is something that you do lose just a little bit when you're working from home. A Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting is not quite the same as being able to walk 6 feet and go and talk to somebody about something that you're working on, or to hop into a meeting room and work together with someone through different problems. So that is a big benefit of a hybrid schedule. Commute time, listen, if I don't have to drive an hour into the office, I'm going to be happier than if I do, right? So to cut back on that commute time, you get savings, you get more time in your day. It's perfect, right? And company culture, this is something that you'll hear a lot about in the push back to return to the office, is that we want to build our company culture. And I do agree with this to some point. Being connected with your coworkers beyond something that isn't just work is actually a really nice feeling. That's why I do come in for events and stuff like this, because the working from home, you really do lose that outside connection, and we'll talk about ways you can mitigate that. But I did want to highlight that here. Some of the cons of a hybrid schedule, logistics and infrastructure. This one necessarily doesn't apply to the workers, but for businesses more so. Okay, we have an office. Well, how many people are working remotely? How many people are actually coming into the office? Okay, well, this office costs us $20 million a year to have. Is it really worth it? Like, should we just go full remote? And so you need a space for that. And the other part of this is that some companies do offer some sort of stipend for remote work. So, hey, you're joining the company, you're going to be working remotely. Here's $500. Go get a desk, go get whatever you need to help you out and build a comfortable environment for yourself. A big one here is communication challenges. People struggle with this a lot in a remote environment. It is more difficult to, maybe send an email or to send a ping to somebody and say, hey, like, I'm working on this. I really need help. You'll see people maybe disappear for a few days. You don't hear anything from them. That's one of the things you really got to be careful of. And this applies for a full remote schedule too. But I do find it more so with a hybrid schedule because, oh, well, we can just talk about that in the office tomorrow. Like, I don't need to respond to that email. I don't need to respond to this person. All of that can wait. I'll be in the office. So it's just something that you need to look out for when you're working hybrid. Um, I did want to touch very briefly on bias here. It's not something I've personally experienced, but I have read horror stories about people who, oh, well, this person's working from home today. They're not a hard worker. They're not doing anything at home. I'm in the office. They're not. Like, this isn't fair. Like, this person doesn't deserve a raise, a promotion, whatever. It's not something that, happens as explicitly like that, but it is something to be aware of, that some people may see you as something else because you're working from home and they're stuck in the office, or maybe you're not coming in every week like they are. And so I'm not really sure how to mitigate that. That doesn't really happen with Accenture. It's nothing that, like I said, I've personally experienced, but I did want to mention that briefly. And kind of building on top of that, people being stuck in the old ways. This is something I've encountered at my last company, where we're making this push to do remote work, but your VP, your head of sales, they all want you to come in. They want you to be in the office. They like to see faces. They like to see everyone. And then when you're not there, it's kind of builds into that bias. And so it's just something that you need to look out for. So that's it for the hybrid. Was there any questions on that before we move on?
Um,
Okay, that's fine. So let's talk a little bit about the best parts of working from home, right? Maximum flexibility. Some companies do let you set your hours. At Accenture, since we work with clients, we normally match whatever the client is working. But some companies, you want to work from midnight to 7 in the morning, like, go ahead. As long as you're getting the work done, like, that's all that matters. And so it's not just flexibility with hours. I also mentioned earlier, if you want to go work on the beach for a week, you can do that. And so you really do get that sort of freedom. You can live anywhere if you want to move to a lower cost of living area and take advantage of the salary you're getting. I've seen people do all sorts of stuff. So another benefit is global talent. So Accenture is a global company. We have people all over the world, offices all over the world, all sorts of different countries. And if you're requiring people to, let's say, oh, everybody needs to be in Nashville, you're really missing out on a lot of talented people that don't want to move to Nashville. Not everybody wants to live here. They don't want to go into the office. That's a big one, is people don't want to go into the office a lot. People look for remote positions, and so you miss out on that when you are bringing people into the office. Cost savings. I briefly touched on this earlier too. You're saving money in commute times. Maybe you don't even need a car if you're not going into the office every day. You can save on wardrobe. You don't need to dress to the nines every day. You get some cost savings there. Work life integration. So this is kind of a trying to think of how to say this. It sounds weird, but being able to weave your work schedule into your daily life is actually a pretty big pro. Like, let's say, oh, okay, I want to go to lunch with my friend. Well, take an hour off, go do that. You're not stuck in the office. You have this sort of weaving in and out of work hours. So sometimes, I'll take 2 hours off in the middle of the day to go work out, or I'll go to the park with my dog, and I can just fill that time in later in the day. So you can really make your work schedule work around your life. And then environmental impact. This is super important. If you're not driving to the office every day, you're not, spending $20 in gas every day driving to and from work, you're starting to make an environmental impact. Not everybody drives a Tesla or an electric car. So I just want to point that out here. So there are, unfortunately, some pretty big drawbacks to remote working. I know it sounds great to work from home, and we just talked about all the pros, right? This whole presentation is about that. But I do want to highlight the cons here. A really big one is isolation. If you're not leaving the house, you're not, communicating with your coworkers, you're not going to the office, seeing friendly faces, maybe you move far away from your family or your friends. It's really easy to get trapped into this cycle of isolation where you don't leave the house for a week, 2 weeks at a time. You're using Instacart, you're getting all your groceries delivered. You're not leaving the house at all, and that's a really dangerous trap. I have fallen into it too. I said, oh, I'm working from home, cool, I don't need to leave the house. And especially during the pandemic, I mean, nobody wanted to leave the house, but you do reach a point where you're like, man, I haven't talked to another person in a month, like I really need to get out of the house. And there's all sorts of resources for dealing with this loneliness and remote working. I definitely recommend doing some more research, especially if you feel like you are uh, being trapped in that sort of cycle. Uh, Communication breakdowns. I did mention this before with the hybrid, but it's even more so with remote sometimes. Not hearing from somebody, not getting follow-up emails, you know, maybe you're uh, working towards a deadline and there's just no communication from the people that are working with you on, is this deadline realistic, are we going to make it here? So that happens sometimes. I know one of the things that Accenture really stresses is good communication. The people who succeed here have good communication skills. And so it's pretty easy to avoid this. It's just don't ignore your emails, respond, try not to leave people on red for hours at a time. You really want to be proactive in that communication. Overworking and burnout. This is one of my favorite topics because I go through cycles of this all of the time. Sometimes I'll work 50, 60 hours a week, and then, the next I'm like, okay, I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm done. I don't want to be here. Like, it's time to move on. But a lot with the isolation. There's a lot of resources for dealing with burnout, mainly setting a routine, getting out there, doing extracurricular activities. So I'll go play trivia some nights, I'll go play soccer some nights. It's like really putting yourself out there. It really does help with the burnout. The other parts of this are to set clear boundaries with the people you're working with, especially if you're feeling the burnout. I've had people, message me at midnight sometimes, and it's like, okay, are you really expecting this right now? Like, let's set a boundary here. Don't message me after midnight. I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to be on. And so you can actually avoid kind of this burnout scenario. The other part of this is disconnecting from technology. As someone who works in tech myself and I love video games, it's a very fair line to walk. It's really easy for me to sit on a computer for 8 hours a day and then sit on the gaming computer for 8 hours at night. But that really, really hurts you in the long run. It's not sustainable to stare at a screen for 16 hours a day. Something that you might have to learn the hard way, but finding other hobbies that are not technology related is a great way to avoid that. I also wanted to talk about tech support. Um, Tech support's kind of hit or miss depending where you are. Working remote, though, it does add a certain delay. So if you need a new laptop, you're not going to get that immediately. It's not going to be same day. Did just want to mention that. And then team cohesion. It's harder to build relationships, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can build better relationships. But building relationships within your team in a fully remote environment, it can be difficult. And that has negative effects on all sorts of things like productivity and whatnot. So also wanted to just quickly mention that one. Are there any questions about remote work cons here?
I don't see any, but I have a question.
Sure.
So when you were talking about, like kind of bonding with your team when you're working remotely, what are some ways that you can kind of try to get to know your team better in like a remote environment?
Yeah, so one of the biggest ones is virtual happy hours, right? That has been a really good way for me to connect. You're talking, if you don't know, a virtual happy hour is just where you get into a meeting with some of the people that you're working with, and you talk about anything but work. That is the best part. You're actually getting to know your coworkers a little bit better. You might find out that they have kids or they have a dog or whatever. And so you really build a deeper sense of a relationship with someone through events like that. Some of the other ways are lunch and learns. Lunch and learns are a good way to still talk about work, but also maybe in a more relaxed environment. You're not working with a client or your managers or something like that. So that's been the way that I've built a better relationship. Uh, One more way, just ask somebody like, "Hey, how's your day going?" At the start of a meeting, say, "Hey, how are your kids doing?" Or just making that sort of small talk and really trying to show an interest in other people's lives really does help build that relationship better.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to talk about what does successful remote working actually look like. um, I think there's this kind of stigma around remote working where there's really two. The first one is there's a guy chained to his desk for 8 hours a day in a dark room, just typing away on the computer, right? That's the first. That's what I used to think of when I thought of remote working. The second one is the person who has their laptop on and is just watching TV all day, or they're just screwing around. They're not even there, you know. I think that both of these, while there are examples of this, I don't think that's a good representation of what successful remote working actually looks like. So I want to just dive in a little bit into how can you become a successful remote worker? And these are my own personal experiences. All of these things I'm about to talk about are things that I have done or tried to do at least. So the first one is professionalism. Um, Professionalism is, to me, professionalism is how people view your business persona, for lack of a better term. How do people see you? You know, are you maybe giving people a reason to not like you or form some sort of bias through not acting in a professional manner? And this goes across, it's beyond dressing, it's within communication. You know, are your emails professional? Are you forming a bad image for your company? And so some professional tips for remote working: having a dedicated workspace. This is a big one. You don't want to join meetings when from your couch. You know, you don't want your dog barking in the background. You don't want your kids screaming in the background. You know, you really want to have, uh, if you can, have a dedicated workspace, have an office. I've got an office at my house. I've got a standing desk. It's a really nice way to separate your work and your life even. So kind of a dual benefit there. You know, I'm not at my desk when I'm not working, so I get into that mindset when I sit at that desk, it is work time, and that really helps. Another big one is putting your camera on. I hate putting my camera on sometimes, but I do it every single time I join a meeting because that's a good way to connect. You're not just looking at somebody's picture, you're not just, you know, hearing their voice, actually being able to see them and see their facial expressions. Like I'm looking at Emily, she's nodding along with me. I know that I'm not just droning on. Like it's a really good way to have a collaborative meeting. So definitely keep your cameras on. That is probably the biggest tip I can give. And some people are reluctant to do this for one reason or another. I don't think anybody's judging you when you have your camera on. Do it. The other one is dress for success. Um, like I mentioned, the person who sits in their pajamas all day just watching TV, probably not the best look, probably not the best image to give to people. I normally wear some sort of polo, or if I know I don't have any meetings, then, you know, maybe a hoodie, or maybe I'll put my pajamas on. I'm not saying I don't ever, but you know, when you're presenting yourself to other people, you want to just make sure that you look well put together, you know, maybe do your hair, stuff like that. Punctuality. Punctuality is even more important, I would say, in a remote environment. Everybody gets busy, but you don't want to be the person that says, "Oh, sorry, I was late to this meeting. I was, you know, heating up a burrito in the microwave." You know, that's not the type of image that you want to give to people. You want to make sure that you're on time for your meetings, you're responding to emails, stuff like that. Um, that's not to say that things don't come up, but if things are coming up that are making you late or you're not able to join something, then you definitely want to communicate that. And the last tip here I have for professionalism, and this is one that has really served me well, is taking initiative. So you're not waiting for people to give you work. You're going and saying, okay, I have finished my work. I already did what I was supposed to do. What else can I do? And this has a few benefits. One, makes you look good for your company, right? Oh, this guy, he just did a bunch of work and now he's asking for more. Great. Second one is filling your day up. I know for me personally, when I don't have a lot of work to do and I'm working from home, it's hard for me to stay focused. And I want to be the person that's sitting there watching TV, but I know that I can't. And so I'll normally take the initiative and say, okay, what else can be done here? And I think that's a really good way to not only help grow your career, but also just make the time go by faster personally. Um, any questions on professionalism or anything I might have missed here?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, awesome. Work-life balance. This is this is a tough one. I think everybody struggles with this, at least on some level. So I want to just talk about how can you actually build a healthy work-life balance. When you're working remotely, it's very easy to just keep working, right? When it's 5 o'clock, oh, well, I can just finish up this one more thing. Or somebody sends you an email and you're like, oh, okay, like I can respond to this. And so work-life balance really gets lost a lot of times. And especially if you're new to remote working. I know when I started working remotely, there was no work-life balance. If somebody was messaging me or somebody needed something done, I was there. I was doing it. And it didn't matter what time it was. And that is a really, really good way to get burnt out. It's not healthy. And so I want to just quickly touch on a few ways that you can build a good work-life balance. The first one, and this one should be obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me, and I still maybe don't follow this like I should, but using your PTO. Your company gives you paid time off for a reason. You are supposed to take breaks. You are supposed to do this. And it's really easy to get caught up in the work and say, oh, well, I have X, Y, and Z due next week, or I have this big project coming up that I really need to prepare for. You need to find good times to take PTO. Okay. If you have a deadline on Friday, don't take the week off, right? Do what you need to do, meet your deadlines. But when you have some time where things aren't as urgent, definitely use your PTO. And if you are in a situation where everything seems to be urgent, really prioritize what is urgent and what isn't, and find that time for yourself. And kind of along those same lines, setting clear boundaries and communicating with people is a really good way to build work-life balance. It can be intimidating to tell your manager, "Hey, it's 5 o'clock. Like I'm not working anymore." And we'll take a look at that in a little bit. But setting clear boundaries means, "Hey, it is 5 in the morning. I am not responding to you right away. I'm not going to be awake at this time. Like I need you to know that you can message me then, but we're not going to have this communication until my workday actually starts, or we can have this talk tomorrow." That's really a good boundary to set with people. I do think that the people who want to overstep that boundary, they could really use some of this themselves. It's generally the go-getter, no work-life balance type of people that try and do this. And so even checking in with them and saying like, hey, when was the last time you took PTO? Like, when was the last time you actually stopped working at 5 o'clock? I think that's a good way to set a boundary. Following a routine, this is a really, really good one, and this has helped me a lot. So I do have a dog. I don't have her here because I'm in the office, but it's been one of the best ways to set a routine. I wake up in the morning, I'll shower, we'll go for a long walk, and then I'm ready to start my day. Maybe I'll get some coffee. Really, really depends on how the night before went, but I'll go get some coffee, and then I'm ready to work. And then I'll work for a little bit and then take a break. I normally take a lunch at noon, and so I'm really trying to stick to this routine. It can follow your work schedule. You can build it around your meetings, however you have to do it. But definitely setting some sort of routine. Generally, in the mornings is when I follow it the most. It really helps me get ready for my day. Kind of along that same thing of getting ready for your day, setting a daily goal for yourself is always a really good idea. Personally, I'll start my day by writing down everything I need to get done that day, and if I don't hit everything on that list, that's okay. But even that act of just crossing an item out on the list, cross another item off the list, really helps you feel like you have some sort of accomplishments for the day. You could actually talk about, hey, well, I did this and this yesterday, like this is what we're doing. And it really just helps you feel better about yourself while you're working remotely. The last one I want to touch on, and you might have heard this before, it's the 90-minute rule. So there are some studies, and don't quote me on which studies, but there are studies out there that say 90 minutes of work followed by a short break is a really good way to increase your productivity. It's a good way to not get burnt out immediately. So I've definitely been victim before where I'm typing away and it'll be 4 hours later and I haven't even moved from my chair at all. Like that's not healthy. Set timers, put a 90-minute timer on and say, okay, after 90 minutes, I'm going to get up, I'm going to stretch, I'll get some water, whatever. And it's a really good way to keep track of your day and making sure that you're not overworking yourself. Any questions on work-life balance here?
I don't see any. No.
Okay.
I have a question or
Sure.
think about around setting boundaries. sometimes setting boundaries can be really, really difficult. How do you have any suggestions on conversations to have, how to have those conversations with either coworkers or a boss, where just so that you can have a better idea of how to set those boundaries, what's important, maybe what's not. Like, for example, here at the Nashville Technology Council, we always try to talk to new employees about the need to be super responsive and timely for certain people, right? Like for board members, we need to get back to them really, really quickly. But that's not, I mean, it's an exception rather than a rule, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions like that, of like questions to ask or ways to talk about it so that you can kind of better understand how to set those boundaries or how to navigate boundaries for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So it has to start with a conversation, right? Getting in the room with the person, or in a meeting room, for instance, with this person is probably the best way. Get face to face, say, hey, I've been really struggling with the schedule. It's pretty demanding. It isn't working with my current life. This was not part of the job description to, I'm not expected to be on from 11 to 2 in the morning every night. Like this, we need to, we need to take a step back and reevaluate kind of what is important and what, like you mentioned, what is urgent, what needs to actually, be responded to when and where. I think that's really important to have that conversation with the other person, to let them know your frustrations, and they're probably frustrated too, right? They probably don't want to.
Everybody's on the same page, right? Because some
Yeah,
things are a 4 alarm fire, even if it is 7 o'clock at night, and some things aren't.
yeah,
Right? And so
yeah,
making sure that there's a common understanding of what things are, reach that level and what things can absolutely wait until tomorrow or even the next day, maybe. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
Just need to be that way.
exactly. And an example of that, from my own personal life, doing software development and IT sorts of work, things happen overnight, and you do need to take care of those. I had one project where one of our servers went down, and it was like 9 o'clock at night, and we have these processes that run at night, and like it was a huge headache. Those are the types of things where, oh my God, everything's on fire. Like we need to go put this out right now. That's important. Go take care of that. But the flip side of that is making sure that you're still getting that time off. If you're working at night, you shouldn't be working the next morning, right? Like take that time, or whenever you choose to flex your time. I think that's super important to make sure that you are still, working the normal amount of hours. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I hope I answered it. Um, so thank you for that. Um, uh, Kind of work-life balance at home, and I kind of already touched on some of this stuff, so I'll make this brief. Disconnecting, like I said, it's super easy to sit on the computer for 16 hours a day, but it is not good for your mental health. You really need to take care of yourself, and disconnecting from technology is a really good way to do that. I don't want to say go outside, it's these kids on their phones type of stuff, but it really can be harmful when you're so tuned in and doing nothing but staring at a screen. I know that I've had some eye problems because I'm staring at blue light all day, and so it's just something to really be aware of. And I also mentioned this, extracurricular activities. Go find fun stuff to do, especially if you're in a city that has a lot of fun stuff to do, like Nashville does. There's all sorts of things that you can get involved in. Go to the zoo. I know they're doing the lights right now. That's really cool. So there's all sorts of stuff like that. And there's even certain sites where you can find groups for the activities that you're interested in. So I know I'm part of a hiking group, and I'll go with them sometimes. And so just important to fill your outside life with enriching activities, so you are not just sitting at home doing nothing, or whatever. Self-care, this is a really big one. I think we hear a lot about this. Making sure that you are taking care of yourself. What are some ways you can do that? Well, when you're working from home, it's easy to not shower for a day, or it's easy to not get dressed. It's easy to just order DoorDash and not cook. So there are certain things like that where you really can really start to get back into that mindset of, hey, I would have done this if I wasn't remote working. Like, we need to stay on top of these things. I need to take care of myself. And kind of the other part of that is treating yourself. It's really important to every once in a while maybe buy something fun for yourself. Go do a fun activity that you wouldn't normally do. Go eat a fancy meal. That's one of my favorite things, is going and splurging a little bit on some food. But just some ways where you can really feel like you are taking care of yourself, you are treating yourself, you do deserve that. So, and friends and family, I know this isn't available for everyone, but building connections, spending time with your family is a really good way to have this work-life balance, making time for the people that are important to you. Um, I do want to just dive into building your network. This is one that I've personally struggled with, and these are the ways that I've dealt with that. When you're working remotely, it's really hard to meet new people. It's really hard to build deeper relationships with these people. Business relationships are tough for me, even not in a virtual environment. I really do struggle to go talk to somebody at the coffee machine and try and introduce myself. So here are some ways that I've really helped myself build my network remotely. The first one is mentorship. So Accenture actually gives you a mentor. This is somebody who's further along in their career, and I go to mine all the time with whatever sort of problems I'm dealing with. It's great to have somebody in your corner that has a little bit more experience than you do, that can really help guide you through uh, different hardships that you face in the workplace. And just because Accenture has given me one, I've actually gotten a few more people that I've met through various different meetings, through different online communities, which is the next point here. So there's all sorts of different virtual workshops and stuff like that where you can meet new people, and you don't have to be face to face. I've actually found that most people like it when you reach out and say, hey, I'm really looking for a mentor, somebody that can give me good career advice. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is so overwhelming. I know I personally love getting those messages because I'm like, oh, well, just do this. And so don't be afraid to reach out to people and say, hey, can we just chat for 10 minutes? I'm interested in learning more about what you do. I'm interested in getting career advice from you. This is where I'm at. What do you think I should do? What are my next steps? This is a really good way to build your network, is building that mentorship partnership with somebody, especially somebody with a lot of experience, because then they have their network and they can start introducing you to people and stuff like that. But even if you don't build some sort of mentorship relationship with somebody, even these online communities and virtual workshops are a great place to meet new people. Just say, hey, I work for Accenture. I'm really interested in learning more about, what does your company do? That's always a great icebreaker. Well, what's your role? What do you, director of marketing, what sort of challenges come with that? That's a really good way to kind of break the ice and get people talking about themselves. It's a really good way to start taking steps to building your network out. One that I didn't add here, but kind of ties into direct outreach, is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool. If you don't have a profile, it's very easy to just hit a button and say, yeah, I want to be friends with this person. And maybe send them a message and say, hey, this is where I'm at in my career. I'd love to, maybe get together. Um, I do this more so within Accenture, rather than outside. So we have a whole directory of everybody who works in the company, and maybe I'll see, oh, there's a managing director that I'd really love to talk to about what I'm doing with the National Technology Council. Like, let's put some time on their calendar. And most of the time, people aren't going to say no to stuff like that. Unless they're like super busy, but most people have the time to sit and talk for a little bit, and that's a really good way to build relationships with people. And this last one, this is sort of new, sort of old. VR opportunities. You can see my picture here of people playing in VR. But there are different opportunities for you to put on a VR headset and go meet people. And in a business environment, this is something that Accenture does offer. We do have a partnership with Meta, that we do have our own VR workshop type stuff. And that's a really cool way to meet people. It's really cool to actually step in and see like, oh, hey, there's that person I work with all the time, and now we're together in VR, and not just staring at a screen. I'm there. It sounds kind of silly, but it actually is a good way to build a deeper relationship with someone. Any questions on building your network?
I don't think so.
Okay. Favorite part, TikTok time. We're gonna watch a few videos here. They're all related to remote working. When they're done playing, I'm just gonna briefly talk about like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, or hey, this person did this really well. So let's go ahead and dive right in. This first one is Gen Z when it hits 5 p.m. Okay. So this was maybe not the best example of setting a boundary, right? When it hits 5 o'clock, there are ways to do it and there are ways to not. Be careful of your facial expressions. I think if you're looking at them like, no, I'm done with this, like, let's get out of here type of attitude, you really want to be careful about how you're communicating this. And if I was in his situation, I know this is just a skit, but if I was in this situation, I would say, we're at the end of this meeting time. I really need to get going. Can we pick this up in the morning? Let's connect first thing. And we can take care of it tomorrow. Most things can wait until the next day. But it's more about maintaining that professionalism, and maybe not doing it quite like that. Don't start packing your bag up. Don't shut your camera off. You need to say, okay, we're at the end of this meeting. Let's pick it up tomorrow. This can wait. Um, Now we got our next video here. So this is a good one. When you're dealing with somebody who doesn't kind of respect those sorts of boundaries that you set, and this is a really good way I found to actually do this, is to say, hey, I see that you're online at 11 o'clock at night. Like, maybe you should take a break, or, I we really shouldn't be having this conversation right now. Like, let's pick this up later. That's always a really good one. So I thought that one was handled with grace, kind of opposed to the last one. Okay, so I do have a few thoughts that I want to share on this video. Um, like I mentioned earlier, if you do want to go somewhere and work for a little bit, as long as you're getting your work done, that's totally fine. Um, my personal advice, don't take calls at the airport if you can avoid it. Take the PTO when you're going to be on the plane. But if you want to come back and you want to go to the beach for a week, make sure that you're staying on top of what you need to do. And like I said, maybe take that PTO to travel, so that nobody's questioning you why you're at the airport. So I think that was handled pretty gracefully. If you're getting all of your work done, it doesn't really matter where you're working. That is one of the best parts of working from home, and expressing that to someone who maybe challenges that idea. I think it's good to kind of stand up for yourself and say, hey, I'm doing everything I need to do. It doesn't matter if I'm in Morocco, like I'm online, I'm doing what I need to do. One of the last ones here. I love that video. It does kind of express what it feels like when you don't have a lot to do. Okay, I'm just gonna go type some numbers into a calculator. I'm gonna go click around, but really you need to be finding things to fill your time with. I know one of the things that Accenture really values is training and certifications. So if you have free time, go get a Salesforce certification. Do something that will help you not only fill your time, but also develop your skills. And that is the end of the presentation. I want to thank everybody for being here. I hope I didn't just drone on forever and ever, but I really do appreciate you all being here. And if there are any questions, you can reach me. Actually, I don't think my email's on here anywhere. I will put it in the chat. You can send me emails if you have any questions about remote work or anything else, really. And I did want to just thank Emily and Sandy here for inviting me today. Really had fun doing this. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Kenan. That was really great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody have a great day.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.